There it is. Why are there? Oh, here. There are yellow lines on my monitor. Red lines. I don't know why. Because I didn't click on something. Well, it's Wednesday. It's Sub-Wednesday, Submarine Wednesday, or in military abbreviation jargon, SubWed. Okay? And as it says here, what we're doing today, what I'm doing, I'm not plural. Although sometimes I talk in plurals, I don't know why. But it's either going to be a breakthrough or FUBAR. Many of you might know FUBAR. That's an official military term. Yep, since this is PG rated, I will read it as fouled up beyond all recognition. You can substitute a different F word if you want, but not in chat or, on the stream. But yeah, what I did yesterday was I spray painted the missile tubes yellow, and what I can say is that they're sitting over there, okay, on that piece of wood where I had the dowels that were holding them up, and I can safely say that there is yellow paint on them. I can also safely say that there are some problems with them, and that might be the FUBAR part. We'll find out. After a lot of careful prep work, what I thought was careful prep work, in sanding down the seams so that they weren't all like offset. Camera there, offset like that so that they were even. And priming them, it turns out that after yellow paint was put on them, there are sometimes gaps in the seams, really tiny little hairline gaps that show. And we'll get to see those all together when I get brave enough to pull them out. Hopefully the paint's dry. If the paint's not dry, it's been sitting for like 18 hours. But if the paint isn't dry, then I'll just show them to you and show you what I'm up against. But we'll move on to other parts of the submarine. What you have before you is evidence that I did something on Friday and Monday. I thought that's important to show that actually that, painting stuff happens on Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons. This, I did not paint this. Okay, that was painted before by Nikki. What I did was I painted the base. That was not challenging at all. I painted it gray and then puddled all sorts of really dark gray wash on it to make it, to bring out all the stone texture. So that came out really pretty well. The base is the only part of this that I did. But it came out okay looking, so yay. So I can put that aside. And then there were these flying demon things that I painted various kinds of red. I painted them metallic silver and then overcoated that with speed paint to give it a red wash. And then I painted the wings and did dry brushing on them and painted the detail and all of that stuff, and even painted the bases. And maybe I will see if they actually go on the bases without breaking. There. That's how it works, so that they're flying. So it's flying like that. Let's see how this one goes. This one sort of stands up. So there, I can put these away somewhere safely. Yeah, I'm kind of anxious about how these missile tubes are going. They're a really important part of the submarine. In the real submarine, they are in fact the whole reason why the submarine exists, which is to launch ballistic missiles. So this section of the submarine was the purpose of the George Washington, the prototype Polaris missile launching submarine. But in terms of the model, it should have been straightforward, but it's not. It's really pretty messy and complicated because these missile tubes attached to a top and bottom deck and have to pass through a middle deck, and the parts don't fit, they're too big around, or their bases aren't flat, and it's just been a real mess. And now they're painted yellow and it's still not working well. So yeah, I'm procrastinating here, because I'll either find a good solution. I'm gonna have these flying demon things and fly away here, but they're not in the way. And gradually get myself over to working on the submarine. There are a couple of things I can do first before I bring the yellow missile tubes out and show you that they're yellow. And that is that I painted the inside of the hull to match the wall colors, the colors the hull is supposed to be. And one of them has, anyway, a delineation, a line. And I need to check that. I'll be right back here. Those of you who haven't been watching this, there is in fact a submarine, and the whole forward part of it has been completed, and it came out okay. This big section here is where the missile tubes go. Okay, this is where the reactor goes. And what is up with that? All I needed to do was paint it gray, and I failed at that. This is a whole lot of machinery back here. The reactor pumps superheated water through one pipe into like 4 decks of complicated machinery that does all sorts of things. It, cleans out the carbon dioxide, replenishes the oxygen, makes fresh water for washing and cooking and stuff, makes the submarine propeller turn, provides energy for the compressed air to launch the missiles, if that ever is a thing that has to happen. Yep. So I see some opportunities to do some really simple touch-up, where the dark gray just didn't cover. So, and here, just all these little spots. So as I continue to avoid working on the missile tubes, although I know eventually they have to be done, but while I continue to procrastinate, I'm going to do 2 things that are, knock anything over terribly much. One is I'm going to test fit these 2 decks. See where the gray turns into the blue? There's a deck that goes across there. And I want to make sure that the blue is below the deck and the gray is above it. And if not, then I need to repaint them a little bit so that they line up correctly. And then after that, I'm going to get the dark gray paint out and touch up all these spots that I thought I very carefully painted, but obviously didn't. Okay. So if the missile tube thing really becomes a problem, if it really goes foobar on me and I just get frustrated by it, there's a lot of other stuff I can be doing. Like I can be painting the detail here. There's some gauges and equipment and things in the reactor room and a control panel and some equipment here. I can paint those on the back of the hull. And I also have the parts for the reactor room that are where they went. Oh, there they are. They all went flying. Okay. There's a couple of decks, that can be prepped. They need to be prepped by getting rid of these circles, getting rid of the extra flashing pieces on it, test fit pieces, that kind of thing. There's a lot I can do. I'm going to continue wasting time here, you can watch me do that by taking the parts for the reactor deck and putting them in this container, because otherwise they'll just be in the way. I need to prep those, and then I can prime them and work on them next time. This is the last, second to the last bulkhead. This one's already painted. This one's already painted. You'll see those in just a little while when I test fit some stuff, okay? This one goes here. All right. I mean, that'll just slide in there at some point. And it's got the typical stuff. It's got fire extinguishers and hatches, some lockers, some whatever machinery that is. So I know how I mean, it's a little more detail painting, but it's not real challenging for the most part. But I'm going to get these out of the way for now and uncover the parts that go here in the missile deck. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like much, right? It's just like 3 decks and a bulkhead. But it's getting the missiles in that's the trick. They sit here, they slide through here. Hopefully they slide through without scraping the paint off, and then the tops nestle in the bottom of this, and it all has to fit together. All 16 tubes have to all fit together and not look scabby. Yeah, that part. Okay, so this goes here. Okay, and there's a little slot that fits into a tab in the hull, and that is what makes sure it's aligned correctly. Okay, that fits in like that. And then this one goes on the bottom. It fits in. There's a slot here on this one, and sort of a slot on this side. And it, you know, there it is. It slides in, and what I see is that the blue paint. I don't know if you can see it, but you can see the line of the blue paint there, where it should be gray. So I didn't put the gray paint up high enough. I thought I did. But I'm going to say, in all honesty, it's a pretty straight line. There's 2 ways I can deal with this. One is I can paint it up higher now, okay? Or the other thing I can do is I can take a brush like this, okay? And after this is put together, I can just reach in and paint it gray, okay? I need a longer bristled brush. Maybe this one. Maybe those bristles will reach. Or I can just use a brush like this that's a little smaller. And then after it's put together, I can just make that. I can paint that. I can stick some paint in there maybe. So I'll decide that later. Right now, it doesn't look bad. I'm going to say that's adequate, that's acceptable, which is good. One thing isn't screwed up yet. Okay, this one is the top deck, and that slides in here. There's a slot on this bulkhead here, and then it just slides in underneath these little pieces of machinery kinds of things. It has to go in just like straight, otherwise it doesn't go there. And what I see here is it's really close. Okay, there's a little bit right there, of blue showing through. Okay. So if I were to take a missile tube, I will just grab one that's not painted. I have many extras of parts because I have 3 kits. It took 3 kits to make one submarine, because these are official vintage 1960s kits, right? Which means that there, that's how it fits in like that. They're all supposed to eventually fit in. This missile tube is not being used because it doesn't go through the holes. And at least at this point it's not being used, although it's one of the better ones. So actually when that's pushed up, I think that looks fine. Yay, I have a success. One success in that the boundary line between the gray paint and the blue paint is just fine once the missile tubes are in place. And down here, it looks like it could be okay. And if I want to, after it's assembled, after these parts are all put in place, then if I really want to, I can get some dark gray paint down in there. Yeah, so you can see how that works. There's 16 missile tubes. It all goes in there. It's just, yeah, it's a thing. Put that over here so I won't be confused by it. This bulkhead goes here, and this thing goes here. Actually, I can assemble this after I mean, I might even do this earlier, but this is supposed to go in here like this, and then this is supposed to fit in these slots. I test fit this once, and it actually does work. To get it all together. Anyway, yeah, it comes, it fits like that. And then the reactor goes there. So, and then these things up here will show these dials and controls and whatever. So I'm gonna paint those color, like the equipment is this color. So I don't need to mess with that. That's one thing I don't need to mess with. Yay. This goes in after the missile tubes are put in. The missile tubes fit into the bottom of this, and they slide through this, and these 2 decks go in, and then this one sort of goes over the top of them. I test fit that a little bit earlier, and it's just how it's supposed to be assembled, and it kind of works. So that's how it goes. But the thing here that I haven't taken up as a challenge yet is these are the tops of the missile tubes, these roundy things. And they're also, according to the instructions, supposed to be painted yellow because they're technically part of the tubes, and the tubes are yellow, right? But trying to paint those little circles and keep the edges right is just next to impossible. So I thought, well, I could there's another part like this, okay, from one of the other submarines. I've actually got 2 more like this. I thought, well, maybe what I could do is I could use this as a mask, because it's got holes that are just in the right places, you know? I mean, they should be, because the missile tubes are supposed to go through these holes and nest into those caps. But when you place it over, okay, when you place it over, although it makes really nice circles right on top of the circles of the hatches, see that? I mean, very nice. They're slightly larger than the hatches. And so if I were to spray paint that, what will happen is that the paint will extend beyond the hatches, and so it won't look like the hatches are painted. It'll look like there was just a yellow circle painted on the top. So then I thought, well, maybe what I can do is I can put some tape across these, get a punch that is exactly the diameter of these things. Okay, punch 15 holes. That's a separate story. Punch 15 holes that are exactly the right diameter for these hatches, and then line it up and spray paint that. That I've given up on that. It's just not going to happen. And so this deck is unfortunately not going to have yellow hatch covers. This one actually is supposed to open and close, because the missile tube that goes in here, and you notice that this one has a hole in the bottom instead of flat surface, has a little spring inside with a little lever, and it worked at least before I painted it. Let's see if it still works now. Yeah, that's supposed to, the spring is supposed to pop up, and a little plastic missile is supposed to launch through this hatch and the hatch on the deck above it, in the hull of the submarine. Yeah. When I built this as a kid, it kind of worked. I mean, it, like, if it went up straight, and it didn't always do that. Sometimes it would just bump into the sides of the hatches or something. But if it went up straight, it actually went, I don't know, like an inch or two above the top of the submarine. I was kind of tempted to just eliminate it from the model, you know, to just not do it. But it's part of the model. And so I couldn't just say, nope, not going to happen. So, yeah, it's going to get built into it. See, that's done. I got the ladder done finally. So you can see that the ladder is black against the green. Yeah, I need to get the dark gray paint out and do the touch-up on these little bits so that if there is a missile tube failure and I just have to give up and try something different, at least I can start working backward from here. You know, I can paint the detail in the hull. I can prep the pieces that go into the reactor core so that they can be primed. And I can find the pieces for the machinery rooms, okay, and get those out and prep them and prime them so I can paint them and just keep moving. And, you know, if worse comes to worse, the front of the submarine will be done, and the back of the submarine will be done, and the part that matters, which is the missile launching area, will just be in perpetuity empty because of failure. You can just tell that I'm concerned about it. I know it can be done. I know that, you know, with time and effort and care and all of that other good stuff, that it can be completed and look okay. But I'm going to do these other things first as I continue a little bit of procrastination. They have to be done anyway, you know, so it's not like I'm doing something that doesn't have to be done. But I'm going to do these other things first, and then I'm going to pull out the yellow painted missile tubes and see what we're dealing with. I have to check this. I'm not sure I ever... Did I ever even prime this? I'm just checking this. This is the hatch that goes here. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. It goes here like this. And it's supposed to close, but it's not going to. fitting back there. I need to do a little bit of filing. Yeah, the paint matches. Anyway, you can see once this is put in place, there is something that holds this. I'm not sure what holds it, to be honest. There's nothing underneath it. It might end up just keeping it in a perpetually open position. I don't know. Weird, huh? I honestly do not know what is supposed to hold this in place. I mean, what keeps... I guess it isn't going to fall through because of the way it's built. No, there's something else to do. Something else to do to play with other than dealing with the inevitability of the missile tubes. Yeah, that. I should probably paint the bottom of the hatch. But something else I can do is the bottom of the hatch is not painted. And there's there's some bits. I never prepped this. What was I thinking? What was I failing to think? Okay, I'm going to leave this out because I need to deal with it. In here is a ladder. You can see there's a little silver ladder. That little silver ladder is supposed to go between the deck and the top of this and the bottom of this escape hatch. So somehow or other, I'm supposed to get this ladder in there so that it stands upright. Yeah, we'll see how that goes on the air. Okay, but this first. These are just little spots that didn't get covered because of the direction of the brush, maybe? I don't know. Here, this is where the blue is a bit too high. The gray is a little too low, so a little paint there. I'm looking for the white spots here. There's a bunch of them on this in the reactor area. It mainly in the junctions of these conduit lines, you know, where it's a little raised up a little bit, so when the brush went across it, the downwind side of it, it just didn't touch it. It looks like an alarm thing. I'll end up painting that red. I don't know what this is. These things, I'm going to paint white and then use the nail and ink technique to do the bezel around them. And because it takes me forever to do little detail work like that, and then usually I have to come back and touch up around it a little bit, yeah, just even getting this done inside the reactor room might take some time. So like I said before, if there is a disaster with the missile tubes, at least I have some stuff I can do. Okay, the bottom of this hatch is supposed to be painted light gray, neutral gray. So I'm going to find that and just get it done. It was one of those things where it was off to the side. I just didn't get to it. There's one of those mold marks on it. but it is inset, not raised, so that's an issue. I'm not going to paint the little prong things because those have to move. Paint the bottom of the hatch so that it matches the rest of it. And I've got a little bit of filing later to make this work because I never did. Okay. Yeah, well, there we are. I found out that, these lines are okay. I did some touching up of some gray paint that needed to be touched. And now I have run out of excuses. I don't need this hull in order to mess with the tubes because I just need these 3 pieces actually, which are right here. I need to make sure, first of all, that all of the tubes, because there's paint buildup on the bottom from the spray paint, still fit into the bottom, okay? I need to make sure they still go through here, and if they don't, then I need to make some of these holes wider, and then I need to make sure that they nestle into the top, again, because of the paint buildup, maybe they won't. And I'm going to have to mess around with each and every tube, and I might even have to decide, depending on how the paint came out, whether there's flaws in them or not. I might even need to position each one specifically in one of those locations. Okay. Yeah, this could be really tedious. They're supposed to be cemented into the bottom, but I'm not going to do that because they need to be adjusted and moved around. So what I'm going to try to do, and I'll test this a little bit, I might even test it with that tube that I had before, this one, and the base piece from one of the other models is what I'm thinking of doing is putting a little bit of like contact cement or rubber cement on the inside here of the tube so that it will adhere to, okay, both of those are sticky, so it will adhere to but still allow like rotation if it needs to rotate a little bit, or orientation changes. I think that's what I'll do. In fact, I think rubber cement would be really good for that because it stays tacky. I don't need it to hold and grab like cement. I just need it to stay put. And I can like get all of those set up and then put them in later. Okay, well, yeah, this is going away. Well, you can see that they're yellow. If nothing else, they are yellow. The paint is dry. They are not, it's almost like they need another coat. Okay? It's just not even. Some places it's thick, some places it's thin. You can see like on this one. okay? That it's just not perfect. Like on this side, it's not done. So I'm gonna have to put another coat on here, which might be okay, because there's issues that need to be dealt with here. Sticking to the bottom. I want to take the paint off the bottoms anyway. You get weirdness. Yeah, they're just not uniform. So I'm gonna have to get them a light second coat. That's okay. So this tube, I'm not sure why, right on the seam there, why there is a line. I don't know. There aren't too many, not as many as I feared. Like this one's pretty good. You can see, other than the fact that the paint is not even, it needs a second coat. There's a little bit of a crack right at the top where the seam is open, and this is an issue with a lot of these. I want to deal with it. There's like this one here kind of has that. I didn't notice that when I was prepping them. You know, the seam's really nice until it gets right to the top, and then there's a little opening there. Is that maybe I can do a couple of things with that. Just show you up close. See where it's open like that? I didn't see it even when it was primed, but now it's showing up. So there's a couple of things I can do with things like that. And I definitely need to put a second coat on these because they're not even. I even held them up at eye level and rotated them and all sorts of things. So I can ignore that and maybe position it so that it doesn't show. I can, if the paint is viscous enough, I can take a little brush and fill that in with paint, okay? And that might be okay, especially since I'm putting a second coat on all of these. A third thing is that I could use this plastic putty and basically fill it in and then paint it. But what I'm going to try to do, what I'm going to do with all of these, is clean some paint off the base. But yeah, as I look at them, I mean, it just isn't even. The paint here, right at the bottom, there's a buildup, okay, and it's still tacky. A lot of this needs to come off. That, because when I put it here, let me just take one of these. When it goes in here, the paint buildup. Actually, the paint buildup helps. The paint buildup keeps it from setting in nicely. And I'm not going to take it off all the way around. I'm just going to take it off the bottom so that it sits firmly. So I'm going to go through each one of these. Like this one, like I said, turned out okay. The seams don't really show very badly, but there's an unevenness in the paint, and so it needs a second coat. Let me take all of these off now, so that while I'm messing with them, the paint on there is an opportunity to dry. Yeah, this one. Now look at that. Yep. There's a little thing on the top here, but it is not even. So I'm going to have to be careful when I put the second coat on to not make it too thick. So because I'm second coating these, I'm going to be focusing on cleaning the bottoms. I don't think I need to clean the tops. These are not going to be cemented in place. They're just going to be inserted. Yeah, and the diameter of these is way big enough. So that's just not an issue at all. That's good news. I'm going to be focusing on cleaning the bottoms because of the sticky paint and dealing with these gaps. And then they're going to just go back on here and be second coated. This one is special. This one is the one that has the, you can see where it's all taped up. Yeah, and I need to spray paint this one separately. Boy, that seam is bad. Here and here, so I need to fix that. But the spray paint didn't get around because of the angles, so that's going to have to get some attention when I do second coating. All right, well, it looks like at this point, it is neither a breakthrough nor foobar. Okay, it looks like at this point, what I've got is a whole bunch of missile tubes that are mostly yellow that need a second coat, needs to be carefully applied, and I've got seams. That's interesting. Right there at the seam, obviously it painted on one side well, and then the other side just didn't. You know, and it's so weird because you run your fingernail over that and can't feel it, that seam. So I don't know why the spray paint didn't fill it. It's weird. But these after the second, I'm not going to bother with the first coat. I mean, why take the time to do that? After the second coat, I may end up having to remove some of the paint around these edges a little bit to get them to fit in. We'll see. I mean, that sets in there pretty well. Okay. I'm going to be messing with these. I don't want to. This paint is still a little tacky. I'm going to put on a nitrile glove just to try to keep it from getting all fingerprinty any more than I already have. The most important thing is to deal with these seam issues. Okay? I can't have that. And then I really do need to clean off the bottoms. I'm wondering if I should yeah, let me put the glove on and then I'll clean those off. So I'm not going to be assembling today. And even if I didn't have the seam issue, I've got the uneven coverage issue. I need to figure out how to deal with that. So I'm going to be messing with these tubes a little bit for a while. And then I'm going to work on the rest of the submarine. Okay. I'm going to work on prepping. Basically, I'm going to be working on prepping the pieces for the reactor room and the machinery room. So I'm going to be rooting through a box. I'm going to make a mess. Yeah, let's move that over. I'm going to keep this thing here. I don't want to take the paint off the sides, but I do want to get it off the bottom because they have to lay flat. And I'll probably end up doing this again after the second coat. I don't know why I'm doing it now, other than, something that sort of has to be done. Gives me some time to think about the seams. I'm going to try using a small brush. Oh, okay, that's an issue. The paint gets in these little slots here. Those are alignment slots that are more of problem than a help. So these will have to be, well, by doing this, it gives me a chance to look at them and see what I'm really dealing with in terms of the unevenness of the paint, and gives me a chance to think about the seams. Like this one has a seam. I want to try the paint technique. I think these are like small enough, just tiny enough, that, like I said, if you run your fingernail over them and you can't feel it. So I'm not sure why it happened. But I am thinking that if I apply just a line, a tiny line of this yellow paint, that I can fill it in, put it on really thin, okay, and then, because I don't want a big bulge or anything later. Yeah, I'm a little unhappy about the coverage of the spray paint. Actually, kind of, you know, I thought I was being pretty good about the coverage, but obviously not. Gumming up the file pretty nicely. I probably, if I had known that it would be so uneven, I probably would have put a thinner layer on, you know, several thin layers. You know, that one's, I can actually feel that a little bit. So I'm going to try the painting technique. Maybe I'll try it on this one, because this one's pretty big. If I can get it to work on this, it'll work on the rest. And if that doesn't work, then way over here, this is going to be like the first test case. If that doesn't work, then I'll have to use the plastic putty, and then because I'm second coating them anyway, hopefully, if I get it, you know, if I use it very, very cautiously, right, just in the crack and nowhere else, and I wipe it off carefully, you know, so it doesn't spread over. Like I said, since I'm second coating these things anyway. Oh, that one came out. That's really weird. It's like textured. I'm going to sand that down a little bit. I'm going to try that. It's almost like it dissolved the plastic, or if there was a flaw in the plastic or something. But I wouldn't ordinarily be doing this, but because it's second coated anyway. I don't know what did that. I must have had it at the wrong distance. We're going to do the best we can later on, if that doesn't clean up, to hide that. Big blob of paint there too. This one just is an issue. Fortunately, it's just one of them. Yeah, you just have to make sure that this one gets like rotated and stuck in a corner somewhere. Because I don't have an alternative at this point. Ran through all of the tubes, I'd have to really make a compromise somehow. Well, okay, not a breakthrough, definitely not a breakthrough day, but also not a foobar day. It's another one of these where the texture got weird. It looks like it kind of tried to dissolve the paint underneath or something. But again, I think that was probably a distance, spraying at a distance issue. I'd say that compared to what I was afraid of in terms of how these look, there's these seam things here that, other than the uneven coverage requiring a second coat, and the second coat will pose a challenge getting through. I'll show you what I'm concerned about. I should have a glove on this hand too. I did. I'm holding it with both hands. So this is a typically sprayed one, right? The clearance here is really tight. So what I was concerned about is, yeah, that's good. That went through all right. Yeah. So at least one of the tubes, will fit through one of the holes. One fits through there. It's tight there. Weird, huh? So this one only goes through this hole. Nice, good to know, right? Yeah, that's how they fit. Actually, you can see then how this will work. That missile tube will nestle in that base there, right between the two decks, and there'll be 16 of them sandwiched in here. And once the missile tube sandwich is put in place, they're all nicely nestled on the bottom. Then I grab this and slide it into the hole between those two decks. Great. So there's one. That's why, when I said sometimes they need to be individually fit. This one doesn't go. It's just weird. There's one hole that's large enough for it to go through. Oh, that one too. Okay. Well, more than one. Yeah. All right. I need to do something about those seams and the paint approach. Now, this is going to require like mineral spirits and a wire brush. Nice mess. The paint approach, if it works, is just by far the easiest, hopefully most effective way of doing this. As opposed to trying to get little plastic putty into all those little cracks and then somehow then cleaning it up and repainting it. And then it's going to be white. It'll be a different color. I just don't want that. Okay. The way I'm going to do this is the spray paint. I didn't use Good Models paint. I used superior coverage and durability. Okay. You want that on your missile tubes. You want superior coverage and durability, especially durability. I can say the superior coverage, not so much, because it's not even. Okay. Durability, Yeah, we'll find out. But yeah, I need to get some of this paint out of here so that I can use a brush with it. So I've got this sacrifice cup. This is use this for washing paint brushes, right? It should be interesting. I'm going to spray some paint into this cup. So, great, all sorts of toxic fumes here. Yep, that's good. I'm actually going to use, this barely anything left of it detail brush. This is the one I was going to test on, right? Get the paint. And then into that. Okay, there's two things wrong with this. One is I need to use a clean container because this paint is dissolving the paint that's in there and it's coming out in a different color. Right? Not good. The other is I need a different brush because this brush isn't going to work. Okay, so this was not, that was ineffective. And this was also ineffective. Yeah. It was worth a try, but it didn't work. What do I want to use as a brush, though? This one might work. I'll try this one, but I need a different container for the paint that doesn't have paint in it that is going to dissolve in the paint. And yeah, and it looks like what I also need to do is it's very thin paint. So what a perfect circle. It just stayed right there in the little well. Yeah. You need to let it sit a little while so that it becomes a little viscous. Right? If it's going to be used as a filler, okay, it needs to be a little thick. A clean container. Out of these containers are a little bit larger than the one I was using. I'd like to have a little one, like this size would be good. Oh, I know. I've got a hole. If I can find them. I'm going to wander around back here for just a little while looking for something. Of these little cups that were used like paint mixing cups. I bought a whole envelope of them, so I was using these to clean brushes until we got the bigger containers, which work better. But this is clean, never been used. Okay, and Yeah, I got a lot of them, so whatever. I need to make sure this is well shaken. What I discovered the very first time I used this yellow paint on a test was that if the pigment wasn't well mixed, it didn't cover at all. I mean, this is very uneven coverage, right? But at least there's some coverage. But then I gave this a shake forever. It felt like I was shaking it forever. And once the pigment was mixed, it did better coverage, although not good coverage. It just did mediocre coverage. Okay, I'm going to go away from the furnace. Spray that feed right there. Left toxic fumes in the room next door, but they will dissipate, hopefully. Okay, so there's some yellow paint. It's the same yellow paint as that paint, and yeah, I mean, it's because it's a spray paint, it's really quite liquid. But I'm gonna try this brush and see if I can get it into this thing here. And that actually is working. It filled the gap. I'm going to try it on the other side. There's a big gap here. This is good. This is a good thing. In that it is filling the gap adequately. And if I put a second coat on it, okay, I'm going to set this one vertically. Hopefully the paint will stay in place and not just run. Okay, that's a good thing. That was a good thing that I hope will continue with the rest of these as I continue to some paint carefully in the little seam there, and the seam disappears. I won't even move the camera down so you can see the seam disappearing. This is working. Something's working today. It's not a breakthrough, but it's better than bad. It's better than not working. Okay. Really uneven coverage. Definitely needing second coats. But once they're second coated, okay, once they're second coated and they look okay, then it's fiddly stuff. Then it's getting them to fit through the holes in this deck. It's getting them to fit through the holes in this deck. And if worse comes to worse, I just take a file and make the holes bigger, you know, because I don't want the paint to scrape off. These are not as bad as I feared in this painting technique. There's just some places where it's rough surface like that. It's weird. It really had to do, it had to do with the location of the, it had to be, the distance that the can was from. Yeah, you can still see there's like a little indentation there, but it's not gray anymore. It's the same color. It's the yellow color, and that's the important part. Where did I leave off? I don't know. I just keep pulling them out here and taking a look. So when I do a second coat on these, I'm going to, try to rotate them as much as I can so that when I spray at it, because it's hard to get at, you can't see these. It's easy to spray this direction, that way, the longitudinal way. So put a little yellow paint on this parts that I'd sanded down. Like a first coat. When I first looked at these, I saw a bunch of seams all over the place, and I thought, oh, this is really going to be a problem. But it doesn't look like there's that many. At least so far. Going on with the yellow paint in the cup here. There's that one, just right up at the top. So again, just an application of paint like that, it disappeared. That's just really good. Hopefully after the second coat, some of this, maybe some of these issues will just let up a little bit. Yeah, but the texturing like that, that's spray paint distancing, I think. Maybe I got too close. Maybe. But when I pick and choose which goes where, like this one's pretty good. With a second coat, it should look pretty good. This will be like up front, right? This one's pretty decent too. Just a little bit down here. And once I've done these, this one has a pretty big seam there. I've done this. I'm going to look at them all again. I'm not going to pick them all up individually, but I'm just going to, pick up that piece of wood and then just look at it from different angles. And then between now and next Wednesday, I'll give them another coat. And then next week Wednesday is going to be getting these to fit, which means manipulating the bottoms and then individually fitting them, putting the really nice looking ones in the front and the kind of scuzzy ones in the back, rotating them so that if there's like this one that had a scarred kind of surface, might go way, can't really see it, that one might go way back in the corner here, so you can't see the rough surface. The really nice ones would go right up in front here, right? If something has a good side and a bad side, I can put it in the back, and you have the back side away, so you only see part of the good side. So, when I get back to this after the second coat, hopefully that second coat will be enough. You can see where it's just, the unevenness, like underneath here. Get spray painted. Where the unevenness became an issue. I said I wasn't going to, but I'm going to. I'm going to go through each one of these again, especially like I just saw that one, where the spray paint coverage underneath here wasn't good. It's just give it a little bit of yellow paint like that, just as a precaution against another failure. This is the missile launching one. It's all taped up there, and I didn't get the paint under the tape very well, so I might have to hold this one in my hand and spray paint it, or maybe lay it down or something, just to be able to get the paint in to where it needs to go. And then the tape comes off, and the task then becomes, filing or sanding or whatever needs to be done to make sure that the mechanism isn't gummed up because it got painted over. After I touch up this one, I'm going to go back to the beginning. I know it's kind of boring, but these missile tubes, this is the purpose of the submarine. The purpose of the submarine was it resides in these missile tubes. The purpose of the submarine is to launch intermediate range ballistic missiles, submarine launched ballistic missiles from under the surface of the water up into the air where the engines ignite, carrying their thermonuclear warhead to destroy some military target, which is really a city. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to go back to the beginning and erase this up a little bit so you can kind of see what I'm working on. Is these 16 missile tubes as I'm doing, kind of filling in the seams where the seams were showing. And this paint technique seems to work with that. and then checking some of the spots like underneath here where the paint didn't cover very well. And then I'll be orienting these as much as I can and doing it in bright light as much as I can to give a second coat so that they're more uniformly covered. Like this just did not get covered. I mean, you can see the spatter from the spray. There was just not enough paint there. Yeah, so hopefully after a second coat, hopefully after it's being second coated, I missed that completely. Big seam there, I don't know how that happened. That's the worst ones of all. Yeah, so more spray painting, and then I don't know how much adaptation there's going to have to be to get these to fit through these holes. Okay, as I saw before when I was testing one, it would fit through like 3 or 4 out of the 615 that it had to fit through. They all need to be individually fit, and then rotated to fit to the bottom. Make a nice sandwich out of them, and then slide it effortlessly, of course it'll be effortlessly, into the hull of the submarine. And then after that's done, install the top deck with the hatches over it. Okay, that a little bit blobby, but can't see the seam anymore. So that's the point. I'm glad I'm going back over these. I missed one of the more serious seams. See, like this one's really pretty nice. I hope with the second coat it comes out well. This is a front row contender there. Sort of a crackle there. It's almost like some parts got too much paint on them and they kind of crackled. So that will definitely be turned to the back. Okay, the seam, this sort of raised part goes either front or back. So unless that evens out, as I go through them all, I'll say, oh, that's a serious flaw, but the other side looks okay. So that'll be the back in the back row. This doesn't clean up. This will probably face forward, and that will be like in the back corner, so you can't see it. That's why each one of these will undergo a thorough examination. This is a good one. This will be a front row one. Okay, assuming that the second coat works. They'll be individually located to provide the best total overall appearance of the missile deck. I'm gonna have to be, when I do the second coat, make sure that I'm providing adequate coverage, but not putting on too much paint, because then it will. That's how you get the bad surface. Here's another one that could be good. This side is not good, but this side is really quite good. Anyway, yeah, they'll all be located in the optimum location given their appearance. Okay, this one had a really bad seam on it, and the paint filling in technique worked pretty well on it. Yeah, this one had a really bad seam on it too, and now it's virtually invisible. Okay, well, there's not much I can do with these anymore yet today, because they need a second coat, and I need to be careful in the application of the second coat. So I'm going to try to clean this brush. See if I can get the yellow paint out, because it's not a terrifically great brush, but I don't want to lose it. I might need to, yeah, it's coming out. Okay. Got some isopropyl alcohol here. So the rest of Submarine Wednesday, where did that come from? Bristles dissolving. Weird. I think I used this. To try to spread some cement on the model cement, and the model cement, I do believe, dissolves the bristles, whatever these are. I don't think there's paint in there. Maybe it is. Maybe it had all sorts of dark red paint in it. I don't know. I'm going to keep cleaning it a little bit more. Yeah, because I can't put the missile room together until the missile tubes are ready to go, and they unfortunately need second coating. So I'm going to spend some time now prepping the pieces of the reactor room so that they can be primed. Okay. And then I've got those out. I know where they are, right? So I can work on those. And once those are primed, then next Wednesday, in addition to trying to get this missile launching area put together, I can start painting those too. So that there's a couple of areas in the hull of the submarine. This is just toast. There's some areas in the hull of the submarine that have detail on them, and maybe a little bit later, like after break, I'll pull that back out and do some detailing, like right after break. But in order to really make any kind of progress at all after this, assuming I can get this together next Wednesday, if the second coating goes well and I don't have to do too much manipulation to get them to fit, Um, working on the reactor bits, will be progress getting these painted. So, yeah, I'll show you what needs to be done with those in a bit. But let me take this, which is now pretty good, and move it aside. And I'm going to, these parts here are all part of the missile room, except for these, which are part of the reactor room and the control room that goes behind it. And I'm going to just leave these here, but cover them up because I'm going to be making little bits of plastic dust. Paper towel. Yeah, let me show you what I'm dealing with here. I worked on this one last week. There's these circles that show up in the molding process. And when it's all put together, you can see them. And they're not natural to the submarine. Okay, they're not part of the submarine at all. So I've been scraping and sanding them off. And this one's scraped and sanded and ready to be primed. This is part of the deck for the reactor room. This goes, I'll just show it to you. Okay. The reactor goes underneath this deck, which goes into the submarine like this. And then all these bits, apparently the reactor is just suspended from this desk. I am going to have to cement these parts together and cement it to this. And the output of the reactor goes through this pipe, through this little hole, through a hole in the bulkhead that this is terrific, right? This is like superheated water, absolutely, totally superheated water. Comes out of the reactor, then comes through this little pipe into the machinery area, and all sorts of things are back here. But right above the fire extinguisher, right next to the tool kit, right? So if you want a tool, you're within like 4 feet of this pipe that's carrying incredibly hot, superheated water. I hope it's very well insulated. But what's interesting about it is that the entire submarine, absolutely everything in the submarine that requires any kind of power, including pumping water and desalinating water and stuff like that. Hi. Well, thanks for joining in. Welcome for first time chat. The superheated water, anyway, absolutely everything in the submarine runs off of this, whatever is contained in this one pipe. It's really pretty weird. So if this is first time chat and you haven't joined in before, this is Submarine Wednesday, which is a digression from what's usually done, which is painting minis and dungeon tiles for the Dungeons and Dragons campaign that Dyson Dungeons runs. But on Wednesdays, I am working on a 1960s vintage Renoir cutaway submarine. And I'm moving forward very, very slowly with it. And currently I'm working on the missile deck, which has 16 missile tubes. Okay. Yeah. These are official 1960s pieces of paper. Okay. The kits I'm working on are from the 60s. They're vintage kits, which means that there's problems with them. There's pieces missing or broken or painted or badly formed or whatever. So I've been working with 3 kits. Anyway, I finally got the first coat of yellow spray paint on the missile tubes. There were some flaws that turned out to be soluble, which is good. I managed to fix them, but they need a second coat. I was hoping to assemble this today, but the spray paint the yellow didn't cover uniformly. And so I need to put a second coat on them. So it'll be next week when I finally get to assemble. All of those parts when the missile tubes go through these holes and stuff. So while before I get to putting the second coat on, which I'm not going to do here, I'm not going to be spray painting all over the place down here. I go out in a semi-heated garage where I can vent it a little bit better. I'm starting to work on the parts for the reactor area, which is pretty cool. I'll show you more about that in a minute. The reactor room, these parts all have flaws on them. They have mold marks. You can see the flashing, that needs to be filed and sanded off. This is really bad. You can see it all around there. So I'm cleaning these off so I can prime them, and then assuming that the missile assembly, this bit, actually goes okay, then I'll be moving along. Oh. I haven't pulled out this part yet. I should get that. It doesn't need to go on now. It can go on much later. But this is the top of the hull. There's 2 hatches for the missiles. There's one inside, okay? And then there's another, it's like a double deck. And I never pulled this out. I need to find that. And the little hatch that goes on top of it. And I'm going to want to prime that also. But I'm probably not going to assemble it until very near the end when I start putting like the tail and the nose cone on. But I don't want to forget about it. So these are the parts I'm working on now, and I'm cleaning them up so that they can be primed. And there's just all sorts of weird little flaws on them, like these little circles that you can see that were molded in that shouldn't be there. It's like 3 of them on this deck, and they're going to show, and that's not good. And so I'm going to work on that until break time. And then after break, I'm going to be painting some of the detail inside the hull of the submarine. Back in this area, there's some detailed equipment up here on the wall and back here as well. And then depending on how much time there is, I'm going to find all these parts. Okay. There's a escape hatch, all sorts of equipment that's either built onto the deck and needs to be painted, connecting pipes, just all sorts of weird little pieces that are going to be painted the same color, basically. So it's not going to be a painting challenge necessarily in terms of color selection and detail, but it is in terms of making sure it's all covered nicely. And then all this stuff goes in there. Yeah. So this will take a while, largely because a lot of this stuff needs 2 or 3 coats in order to get good coverage. And sometimes when I paint it on the deck, I have to go back and touch it up, things like that. Sometimes there's like little knobs and buttons that I want to highlight with red or black, that kind of thing. I have to find a ladder. So, just moving along here. I just need to prep these. This is one deck I prepped before. So I'm going to get the files and the sandpaper out. And it's kind of boring stuff, but it's important to get the pieces fitting correctly. Okay, and where did I put? Yeah, there it is. I'm going to need this file definitely later to enlarge the holes for the missile deck. I needed use these while I was playing with the yellow paint on the missile tubes, but I don't need that now. Those can be. All right. Task here is to get rid of these circles. they're raised, so I can, with this point of the file, usually just kind of push them off, scrape them off, so that it's level with the plastic underneath it, so that it looks like it's just a flat surface. You can see it changes color because the glossiness disappears, and then I take some really fine sandpaper, not this one because it's all covered with yellow paint, but something over there that's clean, and then polish it so that the file marks don't quite show as much. So I built this kit, not this one, okay, obviously not because it's not built, but I built one of these kits when it first came out in the 60s. I think I was in 7th grade. And I know that when I was in 7th grade, I didn't do things like sand down these mold marks, okay? Just probably didn't even notice they were there. Or if I did, I didn't care. But since I'm doing this carefully with a lot of detail, I'm doing that. So before break, since I have first time chat here, I'm going to show the hull of the submarine so that I can show you the detail that I'm going to be working on. Well, you can see that it's actually a submarine and that it's partially done. I'll show you the details so that those who are watching or listening to this can see it. This is like 1600 grit emery paper. Basically, it's used to polish. Get out the marks left by the file. So Dyson Dungeons exists as a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And the campaign streams on Twitch with live chat 3 Sundays a month at 2:00 Eastern. And it's an amazing campaign. If you haven't already, I'd go back on YouTube, because all the old ones are posted on YouTube, and check it out so that you can get to know the characters a little bit and a little bit of the storyline. But yeah, Dyson Dungeons is Dungeons and Dragons. And this stream started because we produced on the 3D printers back there dungeon tiles for the stream, so that we would have, we were in a cave or a sewer or a castle or a tavern or a warehouse or whatever. We wouldn't just be talking about it, but we'd be able to actually show it. I'm going to show you some dungeon tiles in a couple of minutes because I always promote them on this. So relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons started because we paint our minifigs, our own characters, plus the characters we run into, either friendly or not, oftentimes not. We paint those after producing them on the 3D printers, either the PLA printers or in the room next door, a rosin printer. And our DM said, well, why don't you go ahead and stream the painting? And I says, that sounds dumb. But here I am doing the dumb thing anyway, streaming the painting. Now, why am I doing a submarine? Well, it turned out that one Wednesday, there wasn't any minifig or dungeon tile to paint. And it was, well, what should I do? Should we just skip it? No, don't skip it. It's important to keep streaming. People want to see stream. So why don't you pull out one of those models that you bought when you retired that you said you were going to build and never got around to? And so I did. And for the past 700 months, it feels like, I've been slowly working on getting this submarine model done. And that's how Submarine Wednesday started, is not having any dungeon tiles or minifigs to paint for the stream. Little did I know when I started this that it was going to take so long to get it done. You know, when you're like 12 years old, this kind of stuff, this kind of filing and sanding just doesn't happen. I think I built this model. It probably took me like, I don't know, there's a lot of parts. So just even finding the parts in the box sometimes takes a while. And then getting them together and then sort of painting them a little bit. But I can tell you for sure that it hasn't taken nearly as long as this construction has taken, because I didn't paint the detail and I didn't fit the parts and I didn't sand down the flaws. Running joke is that building this model is taking longer than it took to build the original submarine, which in terms of calendar days probably is true. But then I only work on this like 3.5 hours or something once a week, taking some breaks off for vacations and trips and family stuff and chores. So, in terms of working hours, not taking anywhere near as long as the original submarine, but in terms of, calendar time, how long I've been working on this and still haven't finished it, probably taking that long. This submarine, the original submarine, the box top, where the instruction manual makes very clear, was actually completed ahead of schedule. Now, whoever did this, General Dynamics, maybe? I think that was the company. I don't even know if they exist anymore. When they built this submarine, they actually got it done, at least ready to, for outfitting, ahead of schedule. It didn't stay under budget. That probably wasn't the case, but it was ahead of schedule. At least it was, it was launched. There's always a lot of outfitting that needs to be done, like getting everything to work, making sure the lights turn on and the toilets flush, that the coffee urn keeps the coffee hot, that kind of thing. And that always takes a lot of time afterwards, a little detail work, kind of like building this, I mean, I could have put this together, put the bulkheads in, slapped the decks in, and not bothered with the detail of like painting the dials and buttons on the control panels. Could have skipped all of that and it would have gone a whole lot faster. But, that probably happened with the real submarine too, is that getting the coffee urn to stay hot probably took, almost as much time as it took to rough in the whole torpedo room. I'm not saying that was the case. I'm just saying it's the kind of thing that happens in government construction. Anyway, this thing got launched, the prototype of the ballistic missile launching submarine, and it worked, and the missiles got launched, and they tested them, and the warheads blew up, and what more could you want? Just getting rid of here, this is where it was attached. This part was attached to the plastic tree or the sprue, and there's always a little bit of plastic there that needs to be filed off and then sanded down so that it doesn't show. Yeah, this is where the superheated water comes out of the reactor, right through there into this pipe. And does this pipe have, this pipe has a weird little flaw here. There's one of those circle things, those circle flaws down at the bottom, but there aren't any seams on the pipe itself. That's really weird. Usually there's like a seam that runs through on either side of this. Okay, so I need to file this flaw off without breaking the pipe. Flaw it was not an accidental flaw. It was an intentional flaw built into the molding of this part. Okay. So if you look at the title of this, Breakthrough or Foobar, it turned out to be neither a breakthrough nor foobar. Okay. A breakthrough would have been that the missile tubes were painted yellow and they were nicely evenly coated, and that they didn't have any obvious gaps or anything on them, and I could have just assembled the whole missile deck. That would have been the breakthrough. The foobar, the official military term, didn't happen in that some of them, some seams showed really badly on the missile tubes, but I was able to fix that with a technique I used when I was a kid, which is to use just some of the paint and fill it in, and it worked. And now the seams, they're still there, but they don't show very much. But the downside was that the yellow spray paint didn't cover evenly, and so I need to do a second coat, carefully, not putting too much paint on. And I'll do that between now and next week. So that next week, assuming that the second coat coats evenly, hopefully it will, I'll be able to assemble the missile room. Now, there's like a little ridge there around the top of this. And I can't decide whether that is a molding problem or whether that was part of the, I don't like it. Just lightly file all around the edges here. Rid of that. This makes it look like, instead of a seamless piece, and it needs to be seamless because this is superheated high pressure water coming up through here. We don't want a two-part piece. Nope. It's got to be seamless and robust to put up with the temperatures and pressures. Anyway, yeah, so prototype George Washington launched the first submarine-launched ballistic missiles known to humanity, giving us the famous third part of the nuclear triad. The Air Force had the first two parts, the bombers, strategic bombers, and the intercontinental ballistic missiles. And the Navy went in on it because they didn't want, the Air Force to have all the nukes. They actually didn't. There were some tactical nukes that the Army had. That was amazing. I think we still have them. Little bitty bombs, like this. Little bitty bombs were more powerful than the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs, but they were considered to be battlefield nukes. They were even loaded into artillery shells when they were miniaturized enough so that you could have a giant howitzer firing a nuclear weapon out on the battlefield. I mean, you really wanted to be close to that, didn't you? The same company that made the submarine, Renwall, also makes a model which has been reissued of the largest, artillery piece that fired at atomic tactical nukes. In the box, you should look at one. It's really pretty amazing because the box top shows the cannon, right? And all these people standing around going, "Oh, this is a great cannon. I sure am glad to be part of this." And in the background, there's the mushroom cloud from the nuke that went off. Pretty cool. Okay, so this is the back of the heat exchanger. This is the front of the heat exchanger, and these pieces go together like this eventually. And they'll have to be glued together, and then the seams will have to be filled in. Yeah, because we don't want that. So, and this is the reactor core. And Renwall decided to do a cutaway so that you could see the reactor core here. And the idea is to paint this so that it's, white hot, like fissioning uranium, all sorts of stuff in here. And then this is a closed loop system where the radioactive water goes through here. These pipes, go out through the top and back through the bottom into the heat exchanger. And then it coils around and heats the water inside the heat exchanger. So there's no direct contact between the irradiated water and the water that comes up through this one pipe that pops up through the top of the heat exchanger. So this will be interesting to paint, to make it look like it's like this is glowing really hot. And then these pipes are, hot inside here. And then I have to figure out what color to paint that. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe I'll get some color ideas. The box top isn't very helpful. I'll show it to you. The box top exaggerates. You can't see all those coils. Okay, but you can see how this is supposed to look. That's the reactor. And that's the closed loop coil that superheats the water that goes up through this pipe into all of this stuff here. That one pipe of hot water powers everything, whatever all of these things are. One of these down here eventually turns the propeller on the submarine. The rest of this stuff, I don't know, it's probably like life support, desalination, all sorts of cool stuff, right? But you can see it's not going to be too challenging to paint. There's the floor color, and then there's the machinery color, and then a little bit of painting on the bulkhead for the fire extinguishers and things. But you can see how badly some of these things are molded. Okay, you can see this big seam that comes across. Okay, this is a vessel in the submarine that's supposed to hold the heating coil, right? And then superheated, pressurized water comes up out of it. And, it's not going to be, the real thing is not going to have a seam like that on the bottom. So that's why I end up spending just a whole lot of time. Okay, when I built this when I was 11 or 12 or whatever, this would not have been an issue for me. It would have been paint it red and glue it in and it'd be done. But, I'm trying to make this a really cool model, so with lots of detail. Well, I'm just trying to make it look so that it's not crappy. And that involves getting rid of the seams that are generated by the molding process. This is, in some ways, just a really nicely designed thing. There's a huge amount of detail. Sometimes the detail is in places that get covered up by other parts. So it's like, why did you put a hatch and a fire extinguisher there? You could never see them because they are buried behind two pieces of bulkhead. It's like, why did you even bother doing that? But, they did. But then sometimes the molding process was very bad. There's been a couple of parts where there wasn't enough plastic injected into the mold, and so the parts were like half formed. And I had 3 kits, and only one of the 3 had a part that was usable. Okay, so like these kits were made probably like 2 or 3 years apart because they're different variations. But even then, the same problem with inadequate plastic injected into the mold. All the kits, just weird. Just not done. Considering this is probably a really expensive kit. Used to be able to, just wandering off, used to be able to tell from the serial number what the suggested retail price of the kits were. Like it would be 1-A4-299-3, and the suggested retail price was $299. No, I haven't examined the box of this, so I'm not sure if that's the case here. Yeah, now the bottom of the heat exchanger looks like it's made out of one piece now. Instead of being ugly. So when these go together like this, there's up here where they're supposed to be the same piece. You can see that the seams aren't going to fit even after they're glued. So after these are glued together, after they're, I don't know, I should probably cement them together before I prime them even, because that's all going to have to be filed and sanded down. Yeah. And then this thing, this goes on top of it. That doesn't fit at all because it's got all sorts of weird flashing on it. So that goes up here. And then it goes inside of here. It actually goes inside of this cap. But that is, see, that was extra piece of plastic that shouldn't have been there at all. So badly done. So poorly made. Well, these parts are ready to be primed. This one isn't. Okay, it's about time for a break. I'm just going to file this piece of sprue or tree off, and then come back and finish cleaning up. We'll be back in about a half an hour, and basically I'm just going to finish cleaning these pieces, okay, and then I'm going to paint the detail on the inside of the hull. I might do that after break before I get worn out and tired from the stream going on. I have to decide whether to cement this part in or not before I prime. I'm not sure. I might decide later. Be priming this over over the weekend anyway. Okay, I'm going to finish cleaning up all this junk around the outside that's there that shouldn't be there. And then probably do some painting right after break, the inside of the hull, some of the detail, and then go back to cleaning these up so that I can get them primed so that I can begin the process of painting them after I get the missiles assembled, hopefully next week, Wednesday. Hopefully the second coat will go really well. And I'll be able to, it'll take a long time. I'll just warn you, because each one of those missile tubes has to be individually fit into one of the openings in the deck. Well, I better stop playing. I'm not stopping playing with this. I need to stop playing with this so I can take the break that I need to take and be back about, it's like 10 after now, a little bit past 12:30. Okay. And I'll finish cleaning these up. This one's really a mess. Really a mess. Yuck. Oh, and those are, this is a really important piece. This is the reactor core, and it's got these indentations on it. And I'm actually going to fill those in with plastic putty, I think, rather than trying to file them down. Usually these things are, maybe they're raised up. I'll see. Okay, well, these last bits are pretty messy. I'll probably do some detail painting first and then come back to these so that I will have those available for the next section, which is the whole reactor core area. And then if there's any time left, never know. I mean, it might go quickly or it might take a long time to get the detail painted, depending on how messy it gets. If there's any time left, then I will look for more parts. Did the music stop? The music was playing. Should have been watching, but the music was playing for the intro, and then it never played during this entire time, the whole first half. Okay, I'll have to get that started again. There. Well, that's all it took, is I just needed to notice that it wasn't playing. Okay, I am going to take a break. I need to do that, and I'll be back in roughly a half hour. So thanks for joining in so far. I hope you've enjoyed neither breakthrough nor foobar so far today. Well, back from break. Actually, back a little early. How about that? That never happens. It doesn't. If you've been watching this for the last 75 years, or I mean the last year, or however long I've been streaming, you know that coming back from break on time is something that does not happen. Okay, I've got a lot of stuff to do on this submarine. It's a little disappointing that I wasn't able to install the missile tubes today. I know that it's possible to do it, but the yellow spray paint didn't go on evenly. Not terribly surprising, but sort of disappointing. So those needs to wait till next week. Between now and then, I can put a second coat on. I've been taking the time to start prepping the parts because they are poorly molded for the reactor room, which you can't see because that's off screen. The reactor assembly room. And I also, well, there's just a lot of stuff to do. I have to prep these parts. I'm actually going to cement these two together yet today, sometime or other. Because when you put them together, then you end up with these seams. The seams need to be filled in and filed down. So I want to do that before I prime it. But there are some parts of the hull that I want to paint. And I'm going to do that now because what I have found to be the case is that my focus starts to fade as the stream goes on. And, you know, losing focus a little bit while I'm cleaning up parts, you know, getting extra plastic off and filing and sanding is one thing, but losing focus when I'm doing tiny little detail painting is kind of another. So I'm going to set these aside. My aside on this workbench keeps getting to be more and more cluttered. I keep vowing I will clean this up, and then I never do. Okay, so I'm setting these aside here, and I'm getting the hull of the submarine. Take my glasses off so I can see closer up. Those of you who haven't and those of you who have, this is the part of the submarine that's already been done. And you can see, you know, I have paid some attention to detail. I got like dials and things like that on the control panel. Got that done. Got the toilets up there done. If you can see the galley way back there. Okay, you can see the cabinets are outlined. There's pots and pans, the faucets there. Right in the center is the most important thing, a gigantic coffee urn. Right there in the center. There's some storerooms back there behind those doors. You can see the cabinets behind there. And the hanging meat. There's meat, hams and things, and sausages hanging there. Yeah. So you can see that I've actually completed a chunk of the submarine. This is where the missiles go, in this area. And back here, this is where I'm going to be painting some of the detail that's built into the hull. There's like an alarm here. There's some dials that I'll just paint white. I'm not sure what they are. There's a control panel of some sort that I'm going to paint light gray. This is a piece of machinery that I will be painting the machinery color. Another control panel here. There's a couple pieces of machinery back here that I'll be highlighting. I'm not going to be painting all the conduits. There's all sorts of weird wiring and things that probably could be painted, but that's just way too much work. These beasts back here will be painted that kind of ivory color that I've been using for the machinery. That takes a couple of coats. So I'll get the first coat on. The gray will probably cover, and the white will probably be okay. I'm going to paint that red. I'm going to call that an alarm. I don't know if it is or not. So I need to find the colors that I need. I think, no, that's not it. Wait. I need just red. I need dead white. Wherever dead white went. Come on, dead white. I know it's out here. I used it before. I was using it on, there it is. Dead white. And neutral gray. So those colors. Red, white, neutral gray. Those are the colors that I'll be using. I'm going to use a good brush. This for detail, it looks pretty well. Excuse me. Recheck my color chart. I'm going to start with white first. And for doing this, because I want to see what I'm doing, I'm going to be putting on my head magnifiers. That's always an exciting thing. Is 2x magnification glasses that really help me see what I'm doing when I'm doing fine detail. And although that might not look like the finest fine detail, for me it's an eye challenge. So we'll get those out. Turn on the light. The extra light from the little LED really makes a difference. And pull the palette out. Myself what amounts to just like a drop of this white color. And the white color is, I'm going to turn this over so that the part I'm working on is, here. And the part I'm not working on, hopefully, won't get bumped too terribly much. Painting these circles. I don't know what they are. Circles. And they're going to be white on the inside, and then the rim of it, which is getting painted white initially, the rim of it will be black. And I use a flattened nail head and a ink from a felt tip pen to actually do that, and it seems to work okay. And that will give the white a bezel. Nothing on the inside of them. They're not like detailed like a dial or something. So I'm not entirely sure what they're meant to be. But maybe they're just like bright lights or something. They're white anyway. What should I paint next? I'll paint... There's hardly any of this. It's just this one, like alarm. I'm going to call it an alarm. I'm going to paint it red. If it's an alarm or not, but it's in a place that looks like it should be alarmed in the reactor room here. And a multi-layered red circular. So it is going to become red. Got these raised circles in it. And we'll see how they end up looking when the paint dries. Okay, well, so far, 2 colors done. I'm going to do the gray next because it's just simpler. It's just easier to do that. And there are only There's like two things that get painted this color. And I'm going to do the bone white. And as I said, it always requires a minimum of 2, sometimes 3 coats to color. So we get the first coat on. It's this color. This is the color of machinery. And there's a lot of it in the back here. It's just loaded with machinery. That's all painted that color because that's the machinery color. I don't know what this thing is. It actually looks like a radiator. I'm going to paint it gray, and then I'm going to highlight the raised surfaces in black. Basically, just because it's molded in, I'm painting it so that it can be seen in recognition of the effort of the people who designed this and molded this to make it exist. Again, not knowing what it is. Gray and black is fairly neutral. So there. Be there. This back here is definitely some sort of control panel. It's got little raised surfaces on it. Things that look like buttons and dials, and so those will be painted something later. We'll probably paint these white, the raised dials in the middle, and then those like red maybe. The cure is to get a nice clean line between the raised surface and the hull below it. Do that. Since I'm a unidirectional painter, I can only paint in one direction. I need to rotate the surface, the material, so that I can paint it from this side. Painting straight lines is always like the hardest thing in the world. Music is playing this time. I should have checked. I should have checked before I started this, since I went silent there. You know, if there's no chatting going on. Should at least have the music playing, right? Where's the mouse? I don't know. It's way on the other screen. Yeah, the music's playing. Huh. That's pretty surprising, actually. Always surprised when things actually work. So that'll dry, and then I'll probably paint those to look like there's some sort of dials and those like some sort of levers. Once this paint dries and levels off. This, now the bone light, that which will require more than one coat, is the last one. Hi, old Brogger. Yeah. Yes, the music wasn't playing the whole time, the whole first before break, because I didn't look up to check to see if it was playing, but it is. So, well, since you just joined in, I should show you the missile tubes. Let me just set this aside and hope I don't break it or anything. Yeah, the missile tubes are now mostly yellow. Look at that. See? The problem is that the spray paint, there were two problems. One is that seams showed, but I fixed that. The other is that the spray painting is not even. As you can see, it's not, so they need a second coat. Yeah, almost finished. I really thought that that the spray painting would have given the nice even coat, but it just didn't. The yellows are sort of translucent. Yeah, it just is awful. So actually, I think in some ways I put a little too much paint on one side and not enough on the other. So I'm going to have to just almost individually paint these things to get them coated. Usually a second coat covers pretty well, like with any kind of painting, but they need a second coat. So yeah, there'll be a little paint built up on them. There were some seams that were kind of showing like that I've been addressing, I think, somewhat effectively. But next week Wednesday, after I put a second coat on these and hopefully not a third, then I can go through the tedious process Wow, I'm going to have to... Army Painter Fanatics. Are they spray paints? Or are they brush paints? Or are they like brush and airbrush paints? Anyway, this needs a second coat. After that, then I start this tedious process of trying to get these after they've been painted and increased in diameter. Ah, cool. Well, if they cover, if the yellows and oranges cover, that would be a miracle because those paints are always a pain. Anyway, yeah, a second coat, and then the tedious process of fitting them in through the different decks. But anyway, made some progress on these anyway, kind of. No, I painted the inside of the hull to match the compartments that they're in. This is where the reactor goes. And this is a whole bunch of machinery. So I'm just painting a little bit of detail that was molded into the hull. $216 colors. Okay, no, I'm not going to do that because I would just be overwhelmed by the number of colors. I think we've got like 70 colors. I don't know. I have never counted them. Sometimes you don't have exactly the color one would want. But for the purposes of whatever I'm doing, I've always been able to find something that works. But wow, that's a lot of colors. What size bottles do they come in? Nice. Okay. Okay. It must come in like some sort of holder, display case, rack or something, so that you don't just pile them up on your workbench like I do and never be able to find the color that you want again. Army Painter Fanatic Paints. I'm going to have to check into those seriously, though. Been pretty happy, especially with these, the Viejos. Been pretty happy with them. In terms of what was available when we started doing this during the pandemic. Oh, of course. Yeah, that's good. Well, you've seen the ones that Alexis built us, right? The holders made out of old PLA spools with inserts that hold the bottles. But when you got that many colors, you need a very specialized rack with nice color labels on it. Yeah, these are really cool. Let me show. I'm going to digress here a little bit and show these off. I told her that she should make these and sell them. So if you can see that one, this one here, you can see where the color changes. Okay. So these are just PLA spools, and then she designed these inserts so that they're just the right size for these kinds of bottles, and they slope down a little bit so they don't fall out. So the bases are down a little. And then, they rotate. And if I bother putting the paints away, which I sort of did a while ago, it's really kind of cool to be able to rotate it and pull them out. And then they stack like that, so it doesn't take up a huge amount of space. It was a really good reuse of, to make your paint back. Yeah, but that was a really good use of the PLA spools. We had a lot of those. The other use we've made of them, the PLA spools, is winding up Christmas lights. They're just big enough to spool up a string of Christmas lights. Started doing that last year, and we've got lights went on sale, and we just went a little bit extravagant, maybe is a polite way of saying it, in terms of buying strings of Christmas lights. So the weather's been so awful lately, though, that we haven't really been able to get them put up. It isn't that it's been... No, it actually has been. The temperature's been, in Fahrenheit, just been hovering right around freezing. And then there's been precipitation every day. Sometimes it's snow, and then the snow melts. Sometimes it's a little warmer. And then we get rain, drizzly rain. So everything has been wet and cold. And so going outside on a ladder, stringing up Christmas lights is just, we're just way behind schedule for that. Yeah, this bone white doesn't cover extremely well, so it's going to need a second coat. Do the other little one first, and then the big one. Anyway, the header for this stream was breakthrough or foobar. And it turned out to be neither. The breakthrough of being able to assemble the missile that didn't happen, but it wasn't a disaster either. That makes sense, that those would be, yeah. And yeah, if you go to the right retail store, they probably are just like dumping them. And it makes a lot of sense to have really good paint racks. It also makes a lot of sense to actually use them. So I think it's been like about once a month I just say, I can no longer work here. There is no work surface left. And then I put the paints away. It makes it so much easier when you can, find your paint. I don't want to put it on too thick, otherwise it'll just look crappy. This is a really big chunk of something on the back wall of the machine room. Yeah, I wonder. Because, yeah, you just see those things. They're always everywhere. Right? And since there's like 730 million different colors of nail polish, it would make sense that they would make, okay, it's going to require some green touching up there. That effort to make a straight line was an abject failure. I was going okay, and then it just like bumped or something. This green paint covers pretty well. That's just one coat. I was kind of surprised at that. So touching up that bit shouldn't be too hard. When I put the second coat of this on, I'm going to use a much bigger brush and just brush across. Otherwise, I'm just getting scabby brush marks right now. This is actually on camera. That's kind of surprising too. Usually when I do this kind of thing, it just wanders off camera. Good thing this isn't a way back here. Way back wall. Not sure if it's even going to end up being visible when this thing is assembled, but it's a pretty big piece of something molded into the back wall, so I'm guessing it was important to the submarine. Yeah, well, that'll dry, and then I'll do some touching up. Most of this turned out okay. The dials looked okay, that looks okay, the control panel's okay. Most of the little ones are alright, they just need a second coat. That's not good, the big piece of thing, but, I'll just worry away at it until it works. Okay, well, I'm done with the hull now. I'm going to very carefully move it out of the way. Take my head magnifiers off. And I'm going to go back to cleaning up these reactor room bits. This one first, and then I'm going to get real brave and cement these parts together so that I can get the plastic filler putty in where it needs to go, to clean up the seams so that I can prime it between now and next Wednesday. I want to get these parts primed so that I can start painting them next week. And yeah, so I'm going to clean this up, cement it to this, let it set for a bit while I clean these other two parts, okay? And then fill in the gaps and do a little sanding on this. That will have been cemented together. This is an important part, and I want it to look good. And right now, it looks terrible. There are all sorts of seams where there shouldn't be, little pieces of plastic where there shouldn't be. So yeah, it's going to take a little while to clean this up and get the seams so they're not showing. And at the same time, hopefully not breaking it. Kind of little fragile bits. This is the piping that goes from the reactor to the heat exchanger. And the designers of this model decided it would be cool, and I think it is, to show it as a cutaway. You supposedly are seeing the core of the reactor. There's the reactor core. Seeing the core of the reactor and the piping to the heat exchanger. At least that's the theory here. Reality is that it was very poorly molded. And a little bit intricate. Yeah, you could tell it's getting later in the stream because I can't talk anymore. The talking was all that great before, but now it's less. Now it's even not as. It's even more not good. How's that? I'll put it that way. All of these things are supposed to be pipes, right? And they're not supposed to have, like, seams showing. Needle files are getting quite a workout here. Get rid of the molding flaws without destroying the detail, right? It's mostly on camera? Mostly. Yeah. This is relaxing filing. Relaxing filing molding flaws with Dyson Dungeons. This piece is just really badly done. The reactor core is not much better. At least the mold filled, this is the kind of part that it's not unusual to just have like divots in it because they didn't get enough plastic in the mold. That's happened several times at important parts that are highly visible, like the main control panel in the control room. What would make this model a lot easier to do is to have all of the parts twice the size of the size they are now. It would be a gigantic model. It would be, it's like 2 feet long or something. So it would be like really huge and wouldn't fit on the workbench, but I'd be able to see what I was doing. Welcome back, old Brogger. Yeah, so I'm very carefully and tediously filing away the flashing because the 2 halves of this mold did not fit closely together, so there's the seams where the molds came together show very badly here. Be a problem if once it's assembled. Anyway, yeah, just another example of bad production quality control on this thing. I'm sure it was just as bad when I did this back in 7th grade, but I wasn't that concerned about it then. Okay. It was like glue the pieces together, the model's done, that's the point. But now I'm, trying to make it look good. And then discovering just how poorly made this thing is has been enlightening. So yeah, got 1 coat of yellow on those missile tubes, and hopefully the second coat will go on okay. Even if they're not perfectly uniform, I'll be able to locate them within the model so that the ones that look the best show the most. And the parts that don't look very good at all, I can hide behind something else or put over in a corner or something. I've seen a couple of these assembled. I've never seen one done by a master modeler, though. I'm sure who put this to shame because of, the lines on the sheets would all be right and the colors would be good and the conduits on the walls of the hull, would be all highlighted instead of just painted the base color. It would be pretty, it could be a really impressive model. Mine is coming out to look adequate. Okay, now I'm going to make a decision here to not, there are these really nasty little mold marks in the back here, those circles, but they're not going to show. And because they're not going to show, I'm going to ignore them. I will know they're still there. It will bother me. I will be annoyed by it. But no one's going to see them. So they won't know that I got lazy there at that last bit. But I am taking the trouble. This will show the seams on the pipes. Other modelers have the same. I don't know. They must have better techniques, or else they just are really patient, maybe. But just such. Just so much stuff needs to be done to clean these parts up. And of course, a master modeler would probably work on, do more than 3 hours a week on a model. So it would, in terms of total time, go much faster, right? This probably would if I would spend like full-time job, maybe working 6-7 hours a day every day. Maybe not on the same parts, maybe, just to keep from going bonkers by just working on the same thing forever. It would take one day would work on one model and then switch over to another one, that kind of thing, back and forth. But at least would get them done more quickly. And they probably work faster than I do too, because everything I do now is slow. I remember when I was like 30 something, right? And my dad was, I don't know, not that old, 60 maybe, 62, 63. We'd play games on the computer, like King's Quest and Mean 18 Golf and stuff like that. And they'd have to be installed and whatever. And I remember that it was like watching him make his way through a menu and click on things with the mouse was excruciatingly slow. Well, now I'm like older than that, and daughter is like mid-30s, and it's the same thing. He was just doing some online ordering yesterday. It was, why don't you let me do the clicking? It'll go so much faster. And it did. But it's, you don't, when you're in the middle of it, you don't really realize how much you're slowing down, but somebody else who isn't slowed down certainly notices it. Okay, so this is pretty much cleaned up. There'll be a little more cleanup, but it fits together like this. And as you can see, that it's just got like gaps, right? Gaps, and the parts don't match up perfectly well. So just like the missile tubes, in order for this to look good, there's going to have to be some filling in and some sanding and filing after the pieces are put together. And I want to do all of that before I prime it, because if I prime it and then put it together, just have to scrape the primer off when I'm doing the filing and sanding. And so I'm going to switch gears here just a bit, get the model cement, my toothpick applicator, or maybe I'll just do it with this brush. This brush is it's supposed to be a micro brush, this bottle. It says, it comes with a micro brush for accurate application of the cement. Now look at it. It's like a gigantic thing, right? So I need to get the cement applied on all the edges, but on the insides of the edges. Here. Squeeze the parts together, and this stuff welds. It dissolves the plastic, so it forms a weld, which means it holds extremely well. It also doesn't give much room for error, and also gives the possibility of making a mess. And when I was young, that happened often. We had tube cement. We didn't have this liquid cement, and so the tube cement was just next to impossible to control. And just form these spiderwebby things. And yeah, well, the important thing here is to get this held together with the parts in alignment as much as possible without getting cement on the outside, because it will mar the surface and leave permanent fingerprints. This is okay. It's not too bad. I'm going to have to fill in and sand and file the joint, but that's why I'm cementing this. So I'll have time yet today to put a little filler in, and then I'll do the filing and sanding probably, off stream. Like the parts fit poorly together. So you can see the seam there and the gap. Yeah, that's what needs to be filled in. And then file down. This is coming, that's pretty decent. The welding worked pretty well there. Not quite as well on this side. Interesting. The back actually protrudes on both sides, so it's a little bit bigger diameter. Okay, well, this is holding up okay. I'm going to, they say, hold it tight, so I'm just going to put a clothespin on it to hold it. This clothespin is holding this tight while I work on these parts. This is the reactor core, and as you can see, there's just a lot of flashing all around the outside. Will make it look ugly unless it's cleaned off. What I'm going to accomplish yet today then is I'm going to finish cleaning up these parts of the reactor room so that they can be primed between now and next Wednesday. Or maybe between now and Friday. I don't have any minis or dungeon tiles to paint for Friday. So unless something gets printed, over the next 24 hours, so that it can be primed ahead of time, We might have a submarine Friday. I don't know. Wouldn't plan it. I don't know. I'll need to know sooner or later, because if we're going to be a submarine Friday, I need to put the second coat of yellow on those missile tubes so I can work on this. Or what I'll be reduced to is finding the last like 40 different little pieces for the machine room, the 4 machine room decks. You know, that'll be okay. They're all going to be parts like this that will need to be basically the same thing I'm doing here. It's getting rid of the seams, and then they can all be primed. Well, the other thing I could do if I'm going to be working on Friday is these parts can be primed and I can paint them too. We'll see. I am not planning on a submarine Friday, but in the absence of anything else, I do want to do a stream because I'd been away for so long. I don't want to just skip one. Maybe ones of fans. Would sorely miss this relaxing painting. What to do about these? These are really annoying. Right on the front of the reactor are these circles that keep getting molded in. And there's just no point to them. I do not know. And they're just on all sorts of parts, all over the place. They're definitely not part of the reactor design. I'm just going to have to file them out. Not distorting the shape of this terribly much, but it really is not a good thing. I think it looks like I got it. That's good. Camera, great. A half hour. Yeah, I should be able to get these cleaned up and then have them ready for priming by the end of the stream. Hydrate. We'll do that. I have to play around with some colors for this. The cutaway reactor is supposed to show, you know, supposed to show the reactor core. So it should be, you know, really glowy red. White hot, maybe? I mean, it's supposed to be really hot because, you know, it's the inside of the reactor. Or what color I'm going to paint it, but it has to be, you know, it has to be pretty spectacular. So I might use some of the pearlescence, maybe some of the speed paints, keep it kind of glossy. Maybe I'll experiment with some different colors before applying them to the reactor. Getting rid of these obvious mold marks of flashing the excess plastic. to the tree, so there's a protuberance there that needs to come off, in addition to the place where the mold didn't fit together. It left a really nasty looking seam. Particularly tough little bit of plastic there. Just seems harder than usual. Reactor bottom here has to be, we want the reactor bottom to be seamless. You know, we want the containment vessel to contain. Going to do some aggressive filing here to get this the bottom control. There we go. I'll probably polish that a little bit. It's not going to show a whole lot, but maybe enough that I'm going to use the emery cloth on it. Boy, this side's really bad. It's like the two halves don't match up. Yeah, I really hope the actual containment vessel was manufactured a little bit better than the plastic version here. To get this edge. Well, I hope I find it. I just lost the reactor core. Yeah, this is why I don't do detail painting near the end of a stream, is because, you know, focus, lack of. It would work better if I set it down like that, wouldn't it? Yeah, I have to like wash these before I prime them. Just accumulating a lot of plastic dust. Okay, I think this is pretty close to being acceptable. Let me get my emery cloth out and just polish a couple of little bits here. Yeah, I'm still doing okay. I do want to finish prepping these yet on this stream. Looking okay now. It was, if you were to, see it now, it looks okay. If you were to have seen it before, you would understand what all of the scraping was about, because this was very poorly done piece. Several of the reactor, the piping for the heat exchanger was extremely badly done. This bit here So there's the reactor core, and somehow between now and then, oh, there's another of those circle things down here at the bottom. Sorry, I thought I was done, but this flaw is not a good flaw. None of the flaws are good flaws, but this flaw is a really annoying, distracting flaw right on the front. Yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out how to paint the reactor core to make it look like a nuclear fission hell. Play around with different kinds of things. Maybe even try like I did with the armor on the wyverny kind of demons, is to do a metallic base coat and then do a overwash with the speed paints so you can see the metallic underneath it. Know why these little lumps are here. Yeah, so this will get itself primed sooner than later. Yeah, I mean, I might try that. I might try a metallic with, I got a yellow speed paint. And the red, the red worked pretty well. Yeah, Zealot yellow. I'll try that on the chainmail silver or something and see how that looks. But there's a lot of detail, different layers of neutron absorbent and coolant and pipes and things running up through the reactor. This pipe is carrying the water, I'm sure. This can go there. My container of parts. And then there's this, which is the cap that goes on the top of the heat exchanger. And this is really distorted. Thanks for the new follow. I really appreciate it. I hope you've been enjoying Submarine Wednesday, neither Breakthrough nor Fubar. Neither of those happened. It was a kind of a mediocre medium of neither a disaster nor a huge success. The onward march of adequacy in model building. What I should do here, before it gets too close to the end, is I need to do a plug for Dyson Dungeons and the dungeon tiles that we use on our stream. And so I am, in fact, going to stop here for a second, even if I end up going over a little bit to get this last thing done. I want to show you dungeon tiles. So Dyson Dungeons is a Dungeons and Dragons campaign outfit, and we print dungeon tiles on the 3D printers back there and paint them, and that's how this painting stream started, which was the painting of dungeon tiles. So each one of these is printed as a single piece of floor and wall, okay? And then underneath this plate, are little ball magnets, 2 in each corner, so that the magic of these tiles, other than the amazing painting, the hand painting that goes into them, is that they hold on to each other. So unlike some magnetized dungeon tiles, you don't have to put them on a metal surface because they don't cling to the surface, see? they cling to each other, and they very easily come apart and get reconfigured. And so when we do our D&D campaign and we go into a dungeon or a tavern or a warehouse or a sewer, our minifigs boldly march into these dungeons, or sewers or taverns or warehouses or whatever that are made from these. And these are rough stone. Without knocking my glasses on the floor. We also produce wood. They're not wood, they're PLA, but they're made to look like wood. And so these are multiply layered. There's a base coat of brown, and then an overcoat of a wash to bring out all the grain and the beautiful wood color. And then the stucco is painted in. So a 3-step process, but these also have a plate underneath and they have the same features. And we have corner tiles and round corner tiles and floors that would fit in between here to make a bigger room, and operating doors. Ta-da! And that's always nice so that your minifig character can walk up to the door and it's locked, right? So you check for traps and there aren't any traps. And then you get a lock pick and you succeed and decide, well, you listen for the other side, but you don't hear anything, but you're never trusting your DM. So you put your minifig over here and the camera on our stream will show that, and then open the door so that if somebody or something comes through, you're concealed behind the door and can have the element of surprise. Or you just open the door and run through, which our Tabaxi Bard would have done. I wonder if there's something on the other side. Let's find out. I will run through the door. Anyway, I needed to show those because that's how Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons all got started, which was the painting of the dungeon tiles to use on our D&D stream. And the D&D campaign continues. Wow, this is really a mess back here. Good thing it's on the back, but it still needs to be cleaned up. Our D&D campaign continues and streams on Twitch 3 Sundays a month at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, U.S. time. And all the prior episodes are on YouTube, or you can listen to them as a podcast. And the podcast, even though you wouldn't see like the maps that we start uncovering as we go through a dungeon, or you wouldn't see the beautiful dungeon tiled dungeons themselves, or our amazingly hand-painted minifigs of ourselves, our characters, the podcast still works because we're very good at describing what's going on. Our DM does an amazing job with character voices. And anyway, you really should, if you haven't already, check out our Dungeons and Dragons campaign, Dice and Dungeons, on YouTube as a podcast, and then join with a live chat when the episodes stream on 3 Sundays a month on Twitch. And although I never use any of the social media because I'm not a social person and I'm old and just never was interested, I think social media talks a lot about, what's happening when and whatever, because other members of Dice and Dungeons do pay attention to that, which is a good thing because, somebody should. And got a new follow today. And if you get onto YouTube, I guess you can become a sponsor, and that's a really cool thing. And I have to, at least once during every stream, let people know that you can go to patreon.com/diceanddungeons, patreon.com/diceanddungeons, and become a patron. And if you become a patron, you get cool things like access to the DM notes for prior episodes. And those are really informative because they describe the thinking of the DM and a little bit about how the players managed to mess everything up. that the DM thought might be happening but ends up not happening, or that the DM just does a throw out of, just like oh, you go to the kitchen, the cook has a spatula. The spatula is magic. It makes sure that when you flip something into the air, it always lands perfectly in the pan. Okay. Why would the DM say something like that, knowing that immediately the party decides that it absolutely must have that spatula? And so instead of progressing with the campaign as the DM thought that episode might go, at least half the episode was spent successfully in excuse me, I just inhaled some of this plastic dust. Yuck. Successfully acquiring the spatula. Yeah. That kind of thing happens all the time. You never lack for surprises in the Dice and Dungeons campaign. We talk about food a lot. It's interesting. I'll keep saying this, that the characters in our campaign are very food-centric. Okay. There's a special affinity for pretzels, the big soft kind, not the little hard kind. Pretzels and croissants. We were recently in a place that had a lot of pizza. Got kind of tired of that. There was some good pizza, and occasionally a calzone. But yeah. So we talk about food a lot, but the players, as players, we just never have snacks. I was told that even though it is a kind of a traditional thing for D&D players to be eating crunchy snacks, that it would mess up the stream, because we're putting on a show. We're not just sitting in the basement playing. We're putting on a show for people to enjoy. Eating crunchy snacks would be picked up by the microphone and be extremely distracting. So we don't get to eat snacks, but we get to talk about food a lot. I wonder if these parts will fit. Getting near the end here. Time to do part fitting. This is supposed to face this way, and this whole thing, I do not see how that, oh, I see, it's a cutaway. Okay. It actually goes on the top like that, and it's supposed to show a cutaway of the inside of the pipe. Can you see that? You can see the inside of the pipe. It's cut away of the superheated high-pressure water going up through this cap on the top of the heat exchanger. This is supposed to fit. And it does. It actually fits. Huh. What a surprise. That will fit on there. And this will fit on here. And in between these two is a deck. This deck goes here like that. Okay. And then this goes over the top of it like this. And the top of the reactor, these are all supposed to fit together. The top of the reactor is supposed to go here, and those pipes fit like that. Yeah, like that. They're supposed to fit there, I guess. And they do. They're test fitting. There is how it will look when it's assembled. Okay, and then that pipe up on top here carries the superheated high pressure water into the machine room, where it can drives everything on the submarine. So this is how the reactor goes together, and then that fits into a section in the hull that's already painted and prepared and ready for it. Yep. So yeah, I just need to figure out how to paint this so that it looks like awesomely radioactive. The decks are easy. The decks just get painted dark gray. These decks, this one and the other one, this goes on top of it. That kind of like caps it off, so that I don't know if this part were to explode, it would not destroy the submarine. I guess if this part were to explode, were to explode, it would be very bad. Right. You can tell it's getting close to the end when I just start throwing things on the floor because, I hadn't in a while. Fortunately, it's a large piece and I could find it. Okay, I wanted to, this needs some filler. Okay, these gaps here need to be filled in so that they don't show later. Like here, it's like close enough that if I were to, file down the slightly raised edge so that it matched the piece below it, the welding of the cement probably was enough to fill in that gap. But based on my experience with the missile tubes, no, that's going to show, especially if this was painted red. So I'm going to get the plastic putty out, which is 100% acrylic resin. That's what it says. There's another manufacturer that makes something similar, and the warning label is so scary. It basically says, the impression it gives is, if this is anywhere within 20 feet of you, it will kill you. It's like, really? That's, apparently it's got some sort of ingredient that's scary, but so this little tube, like there's a gap there, right? That shouldn't be there. So this little tube extrudes some white stuff that needs to be pushed down into the gap. And then it just gets sanded down later after it dries. What I found is that it doesn't always get pushed down very well into the gap. It just sort of floats on the surface. So I'm going to use a toothpick and push it down. And I don't care that it's like spreading around a little bit because that all gets sanded down anyway. So hopefully, that little gap that we saw there is going to be gone. And the little gap along this seam will be gone. I don't know. I'm going to not fill in the little gap on the bottom. Okay. You can see there's a separation there. And it's really tempting to fill that in, but I'm just going to leave that, actually. Because it will make painting easier. This is going on. It looks kind of messy, but because of the filing and sanding later, the messiness disappears. This needs to sit for like a day. So, if I'm going to prime this for next week, I've got plenty of time. But if I need to prime it for Friday, if I don't have anything else to do, and we have a surprise episode of Submarine Friday instead, I'm going to have to sand this down tomorrow before I prime it. So there's all sorts of white goo all over the place that will basically disappear once I've sanded off. Okay, to recap, in the last few minutes of the show, the stream, whatever you want to call it, I do my typical fading away near the end here. What I was able to do today was find out that the missile tubes that I spray painted yellow need a second coat. There were some seams that were showing that I was very worried about, that I believe I successfully covered over by just spraying some of the yellow paint into a cup and brushing it into the gap. So I don't think that those will show very much, and if they do, it won't be terribly much. They all need a second coat because it just did not cover very well. And that will be a little bit of buildup on there, so the diameter will be high. So the once these are uniformly coated, and I'm not going to bother going and showing you them again. Believe me, the tubes are yellow, but they're not uniformly yellow. I'll have to spray paint those again, let them dry, and then individually custom decide which ones are appearances are the best. They go in front. The appearances that are not so good go in the back and get rotated, so the good side's in front and the worst side's in the back. So that basically when you look at this from the side, like that, you're seeing nice-looking yellow missile tubes. They all need to be modified a little bit to get the excess paint off so that they sit in the base appropriately. And I'm going to use rubber cement to hold them in place. I'm not going to use model cement because that will just mess up the paint. And if they're not exactly aligned with the deck above, it's going to be a mess. They vary in diameter by just tiny, tiny fractions of a millimeter, just itsy bitsy little bits, but just enough so that sometimes they don't fit through these holes. So not only do I need to figure out which ones are in front and which are in back based on their appearance, I then need to get them to individually fit through these holes so that this deck can slide down to this level without scraping the yellow paint off. So that will mean reaming out those holes with a handy dandy round file. So that's going to be tedious. But once that tedious bit is done, if I can get this deck to slide down on all 16 of them and all 16 of them to set on this deck, then I can make this tight sandwich and slide it into the hull of the submarine. And then the top deck goes on later, okay? That goes on after all of this is put in, and that just sort of wiggles its way over the tops of these things and then sets on top of it. And then once that's done, the missile deck will be completed except for the very, very top outside hull, which is going to wait until some time in the future. Okay? Yeah, and then we just need to make sure that the hatch, I need to modify that too. I'm going to have it goes in here. The hatch for the missile firing one with the spring in it goes here, and it's supposed to open, but it doesn't quite fit right. So that's going to require a little bit of filing. There's just a lot of sanding and filing to get parts to fit right. Anyway, the next time, assuming I can get these to be uniformly yellow, is going to be all the fiddling around to get these to fit together, one missile tube at a time, and then sliding it in finally into the hull and going, oh, geez, wow, that was a thing. These two bits are already painted. Those are the other bulkhead and the backing of the reactor room. And so the next task will be to get these things primed and paint the pieces that go into the reactor room. and also to paint this last bulkhead on both sides. It's base coated green. There's gray, red, silver, gray for the hatchways. This piece of machinery. I don't cement that in right away because then we go on to the engine rooms, all of this stuff, and I need to find all these parts and get them primed and painted as well. And then it will look like this. All the stuff will be inside, okay? And then the tail with the propeller and the control surfaces and the nose cone gets cemented on. There will be gaps that will look ugly, and then those need to be filled in with putty, the plastic putty, and sanded smooth. Eventually, I intend to mask off this entire thing, completely mask it off, and to paint the hull. I'll probably paint it the primer gray. Mm-hmm. It is going to be epic. Okay. Make sure you let us know when it's put up so that we can see it, because I'm looking forward to epicness. Yeah, there's a lot of detail on the sub, and well, anyway, the streaming time is over, but next time, either Friday or Monday or Wednesday or whenever I do the subs again, definitely on Wednesday, if not before, we'll show you the detail about all the stuff that's already done so far. Yeah, this has been Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons, sub Wednesday, neither a breakthrough nor a foobar, but making continuously very slow fits and starts progress, getting pretty close to getting the missile deck done. I'm looking forward to having that not be anywhere but in the submarine hull. I'm very tired of the missile deck. Okay. Thanks, old Brogger. And it's always great to watch your stuff too, because you are an amazing modeler. And I appreciate the advice that you give from time to time as well. Yeah, I'm just going to, I'm going to stop now and then do some cleaning up and doing some relaxing knot painting for a little bit. I will be back on Friday at more or less 10 doing something. Did the music stop again? I thought okay. I know I got to start it again. Thank you. See you on Friday. Appreciate there. Now I started the music right at the end, so that'll have to go into post, as they say. See you on Friday at about 10 o'clock. I am not sure what I'll be painting or doing then. I'll either be continuing with the submarine, or maybe we'll find something laying around that hasn't been painted that I can work on instead. Thanks again. See you later.